Hey, it's Clip of the Day time where Buck Sexton and I pick out the best hot take, the most fun that we had for all of you to be able to experience on the show.
That's right, and this segment is brought to you by ExpressVPN, which is the virtual private network that we trust to protect our online data.
When I use ExpressVPN, the big tech companies can't see my IP address, my identity is anonymized, and my data's encrypted. That gives me the absolute maximum protection.
And what I like is how easy it is to use. Just download the app to your phone or computer, and you're protected. So visit expressvpn.com/patriot today, and you'll get an extra 3 months free, or you can click on the link in the description below.
That's expressvpn.com/patriot, and now it's time for the clip of the day.
Here is Kenosha Assistant District Attorney James Krause saying that, sometimes you just got to let a crazy mob of leftist lunatics start punching you on the street.
Clearly, if there is provocation, he's guilty. But even outside of provocation, why do you get to immediately just start shooting? As Mr. Binger said, he brought a gun to a fist fight, and he was too cowardly to use his own fist to fight his way out. He has to start shooting.
So Clay, you're supposed to slug it out with a mob that has weapons, including firearms, that's attacking you while you have a gun? That's apparently what the prosecutors think in this case.
These are the dumbest prosecutors on the planet. I mean, look, one of the things that you have to learn, Buck, when you're in law school is you have to learn, and then early in your practice of law, if you do criminal cases, is sometimes you're going to be defending people that you don't necessarily find to be particularly likable or to have been accused of something that is in any way acceptable. I've represented murderers, convicted murderers. I've represented alleged drug dealers, alleged domestic abusers. And what you have to do is the best job of defending them that you can. So I would not want the job to be a prosecutor in this Kyle Rittenhouse case. I wouldn't want it at all. I think it's the wrong side of the argument. But if you are given this assignment, you have to do it to the best of your ability. And I don't know. I'm not an expert in what the Kenosha District Attorney's Office talent is. But it feels like to me they were drawn from the back end of the deck when they put these guys up to try to prosecute Kyle Rittenhouse. Because just as someone who sit and has watched enough court proceedings to be able to judge the overall talent of lawyers, because sometimes you're on the wrong side of a case. It doesn't mean you can't advocate forcefully for the side that you're on. These guys are imbeciles. And it's hard for me to watch them and think anything else other than, one, they're not very talented lawyers. Two, they're not very smart, period. And three, it feels to me like they're almost attempting to get a mistrial. Because everybody has what's called a theory of the case. And your theory of the case here on Kyle Rittenhouse basically has to be, essentially, given the charges, that Kyle Rittenhouse intended to do violent harm to some of the protesters on that night in question. And you have to build everything around that idea. But you have to do it in a way that passes the smell test. And drop your gun and fist fight your way out of a mob is such an insanely stupid argument that any juror out there is going to say, no, the reason why I would have a gun is so I don't have to fist fight my way through a mob. And by the way, there are videos out there that have gone viral of people who tried to fist fight their way out of the mob. And what happens is you end up getting beaten down in a severe way by the mob. That's why you have a weapon.
They doubled down on this. I mean, the prosecutor, that wasn't this guy Krause, the assistant district attorney, went beyond the brought a gun to a fistfight, which isn't even true because there were people waving guns in Rittenhouse's faces, as we've seen in evidence on video and from testimony. But beyond that, I mean, the assistant DA here, Clay, straight up says, I have friends who are federal prosecutors. I have friends who are in the prosecutor's office here in New York. And some of them have been texting me about this stuff saying, this is just insane. The James Krause guy here says, sometimes you just got to get your butt kicked. That's what the law requires.
Everybody takes a beating sometimes, right? Sometimes you get in a scuffle and maybe you do get hurt a little bit. That doesn't mean you get to start plugging people with your full metal jacket AR-15 rounds.
He is saying that Rittenhouse should have let this mob of leftist, rioting, criminal psychopaths beat the you-know-what out of him while he has a rifle and then trust that they won't beat him into a coma or to death or shoot him with his gun. It's as though they've never heard of the concept of self-defense or they reject it outright. This case, I mean, Clay, you keep saying they're going for a mistrial. I feel like what we're just seeing play out over and over again is they never should have brought this case.
Well,
it's so obvious.
Well, yes, and that's why I would love to know where these district attorneys rank on the flow chart of district attorneys in Kenosha, because usually in a case of this magnitude, you would put your absolutely most talented prosecutors on the case because you know there's going to be a significant amount of people watching. Everybody's paying attention. If this is the best prosecutorial duo that they have in Kenosha, I don't know how they ever convict anybody. I really don't, because these guys are a couple of nincompoops. And look, the defense attorneys have clearly slapped them around from a legal perspective, as has the judge, which is why, as we're waiting now for the jurors, and let me just say, you never know what a jury's going to do, right? 12 people can be eminently reasonable, and they can reach the result that you anticipate. You also sometimes have juries that come back, and you have no clue how they could have rendered the verdict that they did. The internal dynamics of a jury room deliberation can be really fascinating. One of the things we did in law school, Buck, we did a bunch of mock trials, and they would bring in jurors, and you would get to watch the jury deliberate and see what you said and what you did and how that translated to the jury. And it was so fascinating because many of the times the things that you thought were incredibly important to the case didn't register with the jury, and your body language or the body language of a witness may well have become extremely significant. And remember, this is effectively all the world's a stage, as Shakespeare said. All of a court proceeding is a stage. You know, when Kyle Rittenhouse is sitting at the defense table, the jurors are paying attention to his body language. Prosecutor, defense, judge, who's in the courtroom, all that factors in. But I would be extremely surprised, Buck, if we don't get a not guilty verdict within the next 24 hours.
Seems like there's no way that you'll even get it, because it looks like it's going to be all or nothing, right? Initially, when they had the gun charge in there, they even threw the violation of the basically stay-at-home order, right? They had a curfew, and they got rid of that. You know, they got rid of the curfew, they got rid of the weapons charge. So there's a very real possibility here that Rittenhouse will be not guilty on all counts. But if he's found guilty on even one of these counts, and this is always the concern that I hear defense attorneys and others, you know, talking about on TV as they're analyzing these things, even one of these counts, the jury may view that as something of a down-the-middle decision, even though that effectively ruins Kyle Rittenhouse's life. And we're being honest about this. He's going to spend – you're a convicted felon for criminal homicide, and you're going to spend a decade or two in prison. Your life is never the same and in some ways is ruined forever.